Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's On at DisneyPlus.com. A quick news update for you guys on Black Widow's success. But before we get into any of that, make sure you do hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest Disney Plus news. Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's On DisneyPlus.com. It's been about 2 weeks since the release of Black Widow on Disney Plus Premier Access and also in theatres. And of course, it was a massive success in the first weekend. Disney put out a press release saying that it had pulled in over $200 million around the world, that it had pulled in $60 million globally on Disney Plus Premier Access, and generally was a big success. Now that was pretty cool. However, going into the second weekend, there was a massive drop off in the amount of people that went to the cinema to see it, around about 67%. Now that puts it on par with Ant-Man and the Wasp, and generally that was seen to be pretty bad. There was a lot of news and stuff around the fact that Black Widow has done really badly. Why have no one gone? And is it a bad movie? Is it due to... There was actually loads of different reasons, and I want to kind of get into each of them. But what was kind of quite interesting about this news was the people that kind of run all the cinemas kind of put out a statement kind of pretty much blaming Disney Plus for this, saying, despite assertions that this pandemic era improvised release strategy was a success for Disney and the simultaneous release model, it demonstrates that the exclusive theatrical release means more revenue for all stakeholders in every cycle of the movie's life. Now I'm going to put it out there, there's more than just one reason why Black Widow did this, and let's just call it as it is. First off, from the cinema owners, they are bound to want to blame Disney Plus Premier Access. They don't like it, they don't want to carry on with it, they don't want to do it. As far as they're concerned, it's taking money out of their pocket. So yes, much easier to blame Disney Plus Premier Access or video on demand because it essentially threatens their business. Now, there's a lot of people that want cinemas to go back to how it was before the pandemic, and there's a lot of people going, actually, no, I quite like the new system. Day and date, it's your choice what you want to do. And it's here to stay. Now obviously the cinema chains, they don't want that. They don't want things to change. They don't want the new shorter windows. They want everything to kind of go back to how it was when they kind of had a little bit more control, and they kind of lost that with the pandemic. Now there was kind of a few things that they brought up. First off is the use of piracy really kind of ramped up for Black Widow because there was a really good copy going around the internet, because essentially when it got put on Disney Plus Premier Access, people that were able to kind of make copies of it from that were able to get crystal clear versions with great audio, and so therefore piracy was much more attractive because it was a really good version. You're not going to sit there and see someone get up and going off to the bathroom, and then a bit later on someone coughs and someone sneezes, or someone's opening their crisp packets. You're getting a much better experience than the usual kind of piracy versions that you would get had they been done in the cinema. So that's kind of one. And piracy is definitely a reason why day and date releases do impact the box office. The other thing of blaming Disney Plus Premier Access, well, yeah, there was a lot of people that watched at home, so didn't go to see it again, especially if we're going to plan on watching it once, picking up on Premier Access. And also Samba TV actually released some information stating that just under 1 million new households actually picked up Disney Plus Premier Access for Black Widow by the second weekend, in that like 10 days after the opening weekend. I'm pulling in around about 900,000, and then additional ones in additional countries like the UK, Germany and Australia. So it actually really made a lot more money, and they're predicting that just in the US alone they made over 60 odd million dollars just on Premier Access in the US, and then more would have been made in other countries, so making Disney Plus Premier Access much more accessible. And I think if you were thinking of going, oh, should we go to the cinema, well, maybe we don't. Now obviously as well, there's another big issue that pretty obvious really. We're still in the pandemic. Things are still all over the place. We still have restrictions. We still have different things going on. Some places do, some places don't. Some places are in lockdown. Some places have mask mandates. Also, we got variants raging and all kinds of stuff going on, which will put people off going to the cinema. And trying to blame Disney Plus Premier Access for that is kind of, I think, naive, but also shanting away from the idea of what's actually really going on. This thing isn't over. This thing's going to be running right through the winter. We're going to get some more problems. And cinemas right now are trying to kind of base everything to get ready for this coming winter, and trying to put all the emphasis that they're the best place for it. I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think that Disney are going to continue on with Disney Plus Premier Access. They'll probably see how Free Guy and also Shang-Chi do. They might adjust the Premier Access. Maybe it's a little bit later, maybe not straight day and date. But if the numbers start rising and things start coming back into place, they might need to in order to keep money rolling in. And if Jungle Cruise is a success, which is going to be coming to Disney Plus Premier Access next week on July the 30th, that's really going to make a big deal, because then they're going to have like 5 numbers Cruella has been doing fantastic numbers on Nielsen for the amount of people watching it, so that's been good. It'll be interesting to see how Black Widow done. But there's definitely this kind of whole thing with movies in the pandemic that a lot of people go see it on the first weekend, and then the second weekend it drops. And now this is not just Marvel, this is happening to Fast and the Furious. It's been happening to a whole host of movies. Some of them are available day and date on digital devices like HBO Max, sometimes they're not. And so it's not even really the Disney Plus Premier Access. That's been happening to all movies because kind of all the movie fans go see it at the opening weekend. They want to be part of the discussion, want to be part, they don't want to be spoiled, so they go straight away. And the second batch of people that go a little bit later aren't going to go see it. Now there's other things as well. For example, Black Widow kind of didn't get, in some ways, it wasn't a positive result. There was a lot of people I personally thought it was good, but it didn't blow everybody away. It didn't do the kind of the Avengers Endgame numbers but I never thought it was ever going to do those kind of numbers anyway, and I think most people were right about that one. It was a weird way, I think, to start off the next phase, because Black Widow's been around for a while, but obviously it's setting up new characters, and it should have been out last year, so that's another key thing to look at it. And also we've got all these new Disney Plus shows. There's been so many shows over the last few months that, even just with the Loki final coming up just after Black Widow, we've kind of been used to having lots of things and a lot of attention being taken away from Black Widow. Maybe if we hadn't have had all of them, that would have been a key thing moving forward. I do think that's not a bad idea for Marvel to kind of keep those series away from the movies. I think that they should probably do with Eternals and Shang-Chi, but we're going to have to wait and see how that all pans out. But I do think that the idea of just blaming Disney Plus Premier Access for the box office failure seems a little bit one-sided. There's lots of other things, and as I said, I still believe that the Theatre Association, it's in their best interest to kind of try and get everything off of Premier Access. And ultimately, from my point of view, it's the exact opposite. Get everything on Disney Plus Premier Access would be better for me, and that's just being honest about it. But I still want, cinemas to be there for people to go see it. I mean, it's your choice at the end of the day. I know for me personally with Black Widow, I brought it on Disney Plus Premier Access because I didn't want to go to the cinema. Here in the UK, we still have got the whole track and trace thing. I didn't want to end up having to go in isolation if anyone there had it. Couldn't afford to have 2 weeks locked away. And that ultimately is, I think, a reason, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And people not wanting to get ill or not get it or not pass it on. I do think that cinemas are kind of trying to gloss over that's all done and dusted, but unfortunately it's not. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing that you can just say that's because of that. Piracy, I do think, is one key issue that they're going to have to look into, but ultimately it looks like Black Widow was a success on Disney Plus Premier Access. But we're going to see after Jungle Cruise if it continues with other movies. We're just going to have to wait and see. But definitely with Black Widow, a lot of interest in this one. But let me know in the comments below, did you go to cinema to see it? Are you going to be watching it on Disney Plus Premier Access, or are you going to be waiting a few months until it's available for everyone? But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow and subscribe. Also, a huge thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and also on our YouTube channel memberships. And I shall see you guys in another video. Laters.